Welcome to the CRS Elevation Certificate Training Series on how to fill out an elevation certificate correctly. Specifically, how to do it for CRS purposes. This is the fourth video in this series, and we will cover sections E and F of the form. For information on where to find a copy of the current elevation certificate form, what it's used for, and why it's so important in CRS communities, please refer to the first video in our series, How to Fill Out an Elevation Certificate Correctly, Section A. Like Sections C and D in the previous video, we are going to take Sections E and F together, since these sections also work together. Sections E and F work a little differently in that Section E only gets filled out when the building is in an AO zone or in an unnumbered A zone with no BFE determined. This section captures the elevation data for the different floors of the building, an attached garage if there is one, and the machinery or equipment servicing the building if applicable. Since AO and unnumbered A zones do not reference an actual elevation as the BFE, but rely on a height above natural grade, the elevations entered in Section E are referenced to the height each item is above or below the highest adjacent grade or lowest adjacent grade. Section F captures the certification of the measurements taken by a property owner or the property owner's representative when Section E is filled out. Also know that the local floodplain administrator for the community can fill out Sections E and F if needed. The property owner or their representative would be expected to fill out Sections A and B of the EC in these situations. Starting with Section E, let's cover an issue we discussed in the Section C and D video before we get started. Remember in C1 where the stage of construction was required to be shown? Well, the 2023 EC now shows that same information in Section E, so we can be assured that the EC was done for finished construction instead of during some other construction phase. For CRS purposes, one of these boxes is required to be checked. If it's anything other than finished construction, it will be an error. Now let's begin with the first two fields, E1A and E1B. These both need to be entered. These fields ask for the top of the bottom floor and whether that floor is above or below the highest adjacent grade in E1A and lowest adjacent grade in E1B. Both are needed for insurance and compliance purposes, as they tell the reviewer where the bottom floor is at. Highest adjacent grade is used for almost everything, but lowest adjacent grade is important for crawl space buildings, diagrams 8 and 9, basements, diagrams 2A and 2B, and split level, diagram 4 buildings. All elevations in this section are also required to be to the nearest tenth of a foot and required to be based on the natural grade. If the elevations are not compared to the natural grade, this must be indicated in the Section F comments. E2 is also required, but only for elevated buildings, specifically building diagrams 6 to 9 that have permanent openings as shown in sections A8 and A9 of the form. The next higher floor for those buildings is usually the reference floor for insurance and compliance, provided the openings are adequately sized. E3 is required if you have a non-elevated building and it has an attached garage. Field E3 acts just like field C2D. E4 is also required. This will show the elevation of the top of the platform for the lowest machinery and/or equipment servicing the building, and this acts just like field C2E. Remember, this must be filled out when machinery exists, no matter where the machinery is located. Local officials should work with surveyors to have them describe this type and location of the equipment in the comments box in Section F. Failure to have any comments in Section F is not an error, but it sure helps to have those comments when the form does not adequately explain something. And lastly, E5, which asks if the top of the bottom floor is elevated in accordance with the community's floodplain management ordinance when the building is in an AO zone with no flood depth number available. This was not previously required, but it is now, This is critical for compliance purposes if and when the building fits this situation. Note the statement about the local official needing to certify this in Section G. This means the local official must make sure either yes or no is marked. Then, the local official must go to Section G, mark the G2A box, and provide the name, title, signature, and date to certify. If unknown is marked, CRS will most likely refer to the region for possible compliance issues. If the building for this EC is in an AO zone with no depth, a box must be marked. Having nothing marked will result in an error. In Section F, certain fields are required for CRS purposes. Again, Section F itself is only required if Section E is filled out. So, once Section E is filled out, then we'll need the following. The first is the property owner or owner's representative's name, or local floodplain administrator, so we know who is doing the signing, the signature, and the date. Sometimes comments should be provided that help explain the situation. Examples of this include the description and location of the machinery marked in E4, or an explanation of items such as floor elevations, elevators, or other items that help explain the building better. Be sure the comments are clear and add clarity to the situation. The person filling out this section should also remember to check the box at the beginning of the section if they are attaching anything to the EC and describe what it is in the comments. The errors we see in sections E and F are very similar to the errors we see in sections C and D. We see missing or obviously wrong elevations in any of the fields in section E. Usually the missing elevations are for E3, the machinery and equipment. Remember, this is a finished construction EC, so all machinery and equipment that's going to serve the building should be installed already and therefore able to be identified. Even if they are on the roof of the building, the elevation of them needs to be marked in E3. If it's a building that truly has no need for heating, cooling, or hot water, then E3 should be marked as NA, and this fact should be explained in the comment section of F. Another error we see is that once section E is filled out, section F is not signed or dated. Or, if it is signed, it's missing the date. Be sure to keep a lookout for these errors. And lastly, sometimes comments are needed, and when they are given, be sure they are nice and clear and add to the form instead of confusing it. Lack of comments is not necessarily an error, but comments sometimes clear up other errors on the form and help the reviewer understand what's going on with the building. As a reminder, we will cover how to correct errors once you identify them in a separate training video called How to Correct an Elevation Certificate. Be sure to watch that video to learn the various ways you can fix any error you see on the EC. That concludes training on how to fill out sections E and F of the elevation certificate correctly. Please go to our next training video in the series, How to Fill Out an Elevation Certificate Correctly, Section G.